there's a entire culture on these platforms, right? So like TikTok is a great example where there's obviously the TikTok influencers. There's certain ways that people use it. And you wrote an article about even the way that people use certain functionality. And one of them was like the live streaming while people are sleeping. Maybe talk a little bit about just like, that seems like such like a nuanced use case for a platform where, most older people would like be horrified at the idea of that. Whereas some of these influencers have really kind of understood like, hey, this is a unique way to use the platform.
Yeah, it's funny. So back in 2015, I was obsessed with this live streaming app called YouNow. And I would make my friends go on it all the time. It never honestly really took off, but there were YouNow influencers. Some of them became musers that are now TikTokers. But it was another live streaming platform where the benefit was to sort of stream as long as possible, but obviously it's very hard to fill content for that amount of hours. And there was this trend that started called Sleep Squad that took off among people, and it kind of became this thing that people did, which is live stream themselves sleeping. And then now we see it on Twitch and TikTok. And it's kind of a thing. It's kind of a meme and it's a joke. It's like, hey, how many followers can I get, when I'm sleeping? But it's also a way to like go viral because it's so funny, and because what it does is provide these sort of pop-up chat rooms. So it's kind of like a lot of people will also just stream an inanimate object, and what they're doing is really just they want to get that like chat going, and then people just start connecting and chatting and having this whole thing sort of within this pop-up chat on the live stream. And so that's the appeal for users that are watching it. It's not that, it's a dark room, someone's sleeping, and that's kind of funny for a second, but you're also able to kind of like chat, with these other people in a way that you wouldn't, have access to. So it's sort of like these little ephemeral chat rooms.
Yeah, and it seems like as part of that, these applications aren't being used solely for the videos, right? So like the TikToks, for example, you could sit and I think it's really unique how they've put the platform together in terms of you kind of just scroll and continue to see video after video after video. And if you're just using it for the first couple of times, like that's kind of the surface use case, but the comments and kind of all of these subcultures within the platform aren't very obvious. Is that something, going back to like the younger demographic, is just all of their friends are doing it and they kind of learn it by talking to each other? Or is it something that it's just actually like the time on the application itself drives you to use some of the other features?
That's something that I would love like data from Instagram on, for instance. I wrote about like comment culture on Instagram a couple years ago, and it's hugely driven by teenagers. I mean, if you go in the comments of a lot of stuff, it's like meme accounts, people trying to get, publicity, and then a lot of teenagers or young people primarily. I mean, of course, there's still it's not just teenagers that comment, but they really do engage in that way. And I don't know, I don't know if that just I don't know if it's driven specifically by time spent, but I imagine part of it is the culture, like tagging friends, responding to things. And I think a lot of young, stars on Instagram also have more interesting comment sections than
It feels like, and Instagram's, I think, a perfect example where you see the comments, but then there's also like a whole nother layer of usage where people take the photos or videos that are posted, they DM them into these groups, and they have these group chats around that. And it's like that conversation is more protected. It's private. It's with that kind of a selected group of friends, but that is almost the same type of thing that happens in the comments to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think both are places to socialize. I mean, the benefit of DM is that you can share links. You have a set group of people. I hear of people meeting in the comments a lot. And I think there's like somebody that was saying that they met friends actually in the comments of the Comments by Celeb page. Because there's all these like comments by accounts now that are really popular too, that sort of highlight some of the best parts of the comment section. So I think people are kind of going there to make connections, find people with similar interests, and then hop into group chats. There's so many interest-based group chats, that people are involved in on Instagram, and I get added to them a lot, and I love it. And so I just think it's another way to socialize. I think that, a lot of users that are maybe more adults. I don't know. I know some moms that have Instagram group chats, but I think they're also more likely to use things like iMessage.
Yeah, speaking of moms, one of the trends that just blows me away is on TikTok, these kids who are pulling their parents in, especially now because most of them are home, and their parents are growing like pretty big audiences simply by dancing in videos with their kids, right? Similar to kind of, I think, how the Vine stars all made each other famous. Now kids are just doing it with like the closest adults to them who just happens to be their middle-aged parent.
I know. I wrote a piece a couple of weeks ago about sort of like how it's all family TikTok now because everyone's involving every member of their family. I saw a girl just this morning celebrating. She was giving her father a cake because he had hit 100,000. So it's been fun. I think everybody, you know, when you like an influencer, you like a certain person on TikTok, you like to kind of follow everyone in their orbit, whether that's their close friends or their family. Their family usually are the ones that have the kind of like behind the scenes access to them and post, you know, funny videos. You know, a bunch of the big TikTok influencers have kind of transformed their whole family into influencers, like Addison Rae, her whole family. And Charlie D'Amelio, obviously, like Mark D'Amelio is like an influencer unto himself now.
Yeah, and I guess part of that is, so Charlie D'Amelio is, I think, one of the first ones that I saw where she's now got 50 million followers, give or
The
take,
most followed person on the app, yeah.
Wow. And so she's famous, her sister's famous, her dad's famous, and her mom's famous, right? I mean, literally the entire family. And then they all got signed by UTA together, like as a unit. So maybe let's talk a little bit just about like the business behind a lot of this, because it's, you know, it's kind of fun in games to see people post the content and grow, but there's really, really big businesses that are being built here. Just kind of at a high level, like how do you think about, you know, the commercialization or the business behind all of it?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people sort of don't understand is the business behind it. And one, how much work it takes to grow that business, and two, the sort of like ancillary businesses that are built up around the influence industry. I mean, you mentioned agents. A lot, you know, the big Hollywood agencies all have very robust digital divisions that sign, you know, people like the D'Amelios, hoping to turn them into essentially the next Kardashians, or sort of grow their brand even bigger collectively. But then you also have all of these other people that support influencers. You know, you have kids that just make money essentially by helping influencers optimize their YouTube thumbnails and editing them in a certain way to get them clicks. Or you have, you know, somebody that runs a brand marketing platform that just partners brands with influencers. There's like a lot of sort of businesses that are helped to sort of set up to help support the influencer economy. It's not just like traditional entertainment businesses like managers, agents, you know, acting coaches, singing coaches. A lot of these people have those people also in their orbit.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think you know, when you get into the game of, hey, just creating content's one thing, but now all of a sudden we're going to start optimizing the thumbnail, right? We're actually going to strategically place you in videos with other influencers to cross promote accounts, and it almost feels like a lot of this loses the authenticity. But the ones who are really good at it, they're able to kind of hide the business a little bit behind this. How much of that is being driven by the kids themselves and like they want it to be a business versus they've got a family member or somebody near them who's a little bit more professional or, you know, experienced that's driving it?
Yeah, their family members absolutely are never more experienced than these kids. These kids understand monetization on digital platforms better than truly, I would say almost any digital marketing executive, a lot of them. And if you look at people like David Dobrik or James Charles, right, both of whom are very young influencers, you know, they're not teenagers. I think James is like 20 and David's 23 or something. You know, they have teams around them, but they're incredibly adept at staying on top of the trends, you know, getting in early and promoting themselves on these new platforms, growing their audiences. And they really do want to make it a full-time career. And it's, you know, I would say being an influencer, content creator, or whatever, you're essentially an entrepreneur, right? You're running your own small business. Often that business is your personal brand, but, you know, it can also just be an interest-based account that you run. You know, if you're a car vlogger and you just post about cars all day, you know, you can end up sort of running essentially a little content company about cars, right? And so I think like any small business owner, you know, these people work really hard. They understand their business better than anyone. And it's usually, it's driven from them, because if you have some outside person, you know, that can help motivate you to a point, but it really has to come from you if you want the business to succeed.